In the first segment of this video, I offered an analysis of the military component of President Obama's strategy. In this segment, I will consider the civilian component, that is, what Obama, General Petraeus, and most military and political strategists and scholars have identified, at least in their rhetoric, as the most critical aspect of the mission. The goal and purpose of which, of course, is winning the hearts and minds of the Afghani and Pakistani people.
And this push must be joined by a dramatic increase in our civilian effort. We need agricultural specialists and educators, engineers and lawyers. That's how we can help the Afghan government serve its people and develop an economy that isn't dominated by illicit drugs. And that's why I'm ordering a substantial increase in our civilians on the ground.
Recently, in a written statement to the House of Representatives Oversight and Government Reform Committee, Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, Michelle Flournoy, makes note that the challenges we face in Afghanistan and Pakistan are economic, diplomatic, and informational as well as military. Consequently, we are taking what she terms a whole-of-government approach to addressing them, and will be implementing an unprecedented interagency effort counterinsurgency strategy for Afghanistan and Pakistan, a policy which pairs fighting the Taliban and Al-Qaeda with massive developmental assistance. Now, this civilian surge will consist of at least 400 new experts, to include, according to Obama, agricultural specialists and educators, engineers and lawyers, whose function it will be to help the Afghan government serve its people. Concurrently, the U.S. military presence in Afghanistan will more than double to some 68,000 troops by year's end. Now, this unprecedented interagency effort that Flournoy promises may be easier said than done. To its dismay, the administration has recently discovered that there are not enough trained experts available or willing to put themselves in harm's way to make the civilian aspect of this strategy possible. Consequently, senior Pentagon and administration officials now acknowledge that many of these new civilian positions will be filled by military personnel and by corporate contractors. So what we have here then, in this alleged combined effort to defeat the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, is nothing other than a further increase in the number of military personnel under a guise of humanitarian assistance. This is reminiscent, I think, of when the Kennedy administration sent thousands of military advisors to Vietnam during the early 60s with the stated purpose of humanitarian aid and flood relief in order to circumvent the Geneva Accords. There is an important and significant economic reality to be considered here as well. Despite an economy on the verge of collapse, this aspect of Obama's strategy will also include $1.5 billion in direct support to the Pakistani people every year over the next 5 years. This expenditure, Obama believes, will contribute directly to security and save us an enormous amount of money in the long run. Now, despite Flournoy's description of this surge as unprecedented, since 2001, more than $864 billion have already been spent in Afghanistan. The problem, of course, has been that due to waste, corruption, incompetence, and inefficiency, only 5%, some $31 billion of this enormous spending has actually been used for development and reconstruction.
As we provide these resources, the days of unaccountable spending, no-bid contracts, and wasteful reconstruction must end. So my budget will increase funding for a strong Inspector General at both State Department and USAID, and include robust funding for Special Inspector Generals for Afghan reconstruction. And I want to be clear, we cannot turn a blind eye to the corruption that causes Afghans to lose faith in their own leaders. Instead, we will seek a new compact with the Afghan government that cracks down on corrupt behavior and sets clear benchmarks, clear metrics for international assistance so that it is used to provide for the needs of the Afghan people.
President Obama recognizes the corruption and the waste that has characterized humanitarian aid and corporate contracts in the past, and promises oversight and that the days of unaccountable spending, no-bid contracts, and wasteful reconstruction must end. According to Richard Holbrooke, the Special Representative for Afghanistan and Pakistan under the Obama administration, every U.S. aid, the United States Agency for International Development, contract and program in the two countries will be reviewed to ensure that aid reaches the public instead of being wasted or stolen by unscrupulous corporate executives and corrupt politicians. However, despite this awareness and these promises, on Obama's watch, defense contractor KBR Incorporated, formerly Kellogg Brown and Root, a former subsidiary of Cheney's Halliburton, was awarded a $35.4 million contract to design and construct a convoy support center at Cape Adder in Iraq, despite it being under criminal investigation in the electrocution deaths of at least 2 United States soldiers. Secondly, together with DynCorp International, another corporation guilty of abuses in the past, KBR holds the lucrative 10-year LOGCAP contract, that is, the Logistics Civil Augmentation Program, contract worth some $150 billion to provide a broad range of logistic and support services to U.S. and allied forces. In a recent letter to the Senate Armed Services Committee, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates makes clear that the use of private contractor security forces, mercenaries, in support of the forward operating bases in certain parts of the country will continue under the Obama administration. According to new statistics released by the Pentagon, with Barack Obama as Commander-in-Chief, there has been a 23% increase in the number of private security contractors working for the Defense Department in Iraq and a 29% increase working in Afghanistan during the second quarter of 2009. So despite their propensity to operate outside the parameters of accepted rules of engagement, it appears that not only will the Obama administration continue the use of these mercenaries, but its reliance upon them will increase. Now overall, contractors, armed and unarmed, number around 243,000. That is, contractors now make up approximately 50% of the total force in the CENTCOM area of responsibility, 133,000 of which are in Iraq, 69,000 in Afghanistan. In addition, the Pentagon report offers statistics which allow us to better understand the Obama strategy. It documents that while the deployment of security contractors is increasing, there has been an 11% decrease in overall contractors during the first quarter of 2009. Now these statistics are meaningful and telling. What it shows, I believe, by increasing the armed security contractors while at the same time decreasing contractors overall, is that despite the Obama administration's promise of a civilian surge, in reality, the new strategy primarily and increasingly focuses on violence and the military option, rather than on humanitarian aid, development, and reconstruction. Nowhere is this more evident than in Iraq, due to the ongoing effort to reduce the contractor footprint there. Further, since there has yet to be any accountability for past abuses, and as KBR, DynCorp, Halliburton, Blackwater, now renamed ZAY, and Triple Canopy, remain integral corporate players, unfortunately there is little in the way of change in Obama's new strategy in Afghanistan and Pakistan. In this and the previous segment of Veterans for Peace Long Island's educational series, I have unpacked and analyzed Obama's new strategy for Afghanistan and Pakistan. In the next segment, I will argue that this mission, as laid out by the Obama administration, is strategically and tactically flawed, and tragically, despite the good intentions and enormous sacrifices by our troops, is doomed to failure.